What if the first ink was never meant to write, only to remember something that could not be spoken? If you are listening at night, tell me where you are and what time it is. Welcome to Dreamy Old Stories, where we tell slow and gentle tales. From history's stories that calm your mind and help you fall asleep, night settles softly around you. The world grows quieter, slower, gentler. There is nothing to rush toward, nothing to solve, nothing to finish. Only a slow drifting backward, like a calm river moving through time without effort. Far away, in lands older than memory, the first marks of thought begin to appear, not as loud declarations, but as quiet traces left behind by careful hands, long before books, before paper, before organized libraries or shelves filled with pages. There were simple surfaces and patient people. They did not hurry. They did not think of history as something grand. They only noticed their days, their seasons, their needs. And sometimes, very quietly, they wished to leave a mark that would remain after they walked away. The air in those early places was often warm, sometimes dry, sometimes carrying the soft scent of earth and stone. Villages rested beside slow rivers. Fires burned low in the evenings, sending thin smoke into wide skies. People moved in steady rhythms, waking with light, resting with darkness, repeating familiar actions that asked for no attention. Grinding grain, carrying water, shaping clay, watching animals move across dusty ground. And somewhere among these simple motions, someone wondered how a thought might stay. Not spoken because spoken words drift away. Not carved in stone because stone demanded strength and time. Something softer was needed. Something gentle. Something that could flow. At first, the marks were faint and uncertain. A dark smear made from crushed charcoal. A streak of soot mixed with a little water. Fingers moved slowly, testing, noticing how the dark trail followed the surface. Sometimes the mark faded, sometimes it broke, sometimes it simply refused to stay. But patience lived in those early hands, and patience does not hurry. They discovered that black soot, gathered from the quiet belly of a fire, could be mixed with water and pressed onto surfaces. The soot did not speak. It did not shine. It simply rested where it was placed. A soft black line against pale stone. A whisper of presence. Days passed. Many days, perhaps many years. The mixture changed, slowly, almost without intention. Someone added plant gum, sticky and gentle, helping the soot remain where it touched. The mark grew darker, more certain, less willing to fade. The first inks were not invented in a moment. They grew like moss on stone, slowly and quietly without. Announcement.in ancient riverlands, where the water moved in long, slow curves. People shaped thin sheets from reeds. Papyrus, soft and pale, waited like silent ground for new marks to arrive. Brushes made from plant fibers dipped carefully into dark liquid. A pause, a breath. Then a line appeared, steady and calm. These lines were not decorations alone. They carried memory. A count of stored grain, a name, a small record of something that mattered only gently, but mattered enough to remain. The ink did not rush. It soaked slowly into the surface, spreading just a little, settling into its place like evening light fading into dusk. If one watched closely, the dark lines seemed alive for a moment. Then still dot in another land, far to the east, early scribes also moved quietly beside their work. They ground soot from pine smoke, mixing it with water and natural glue, pressing the mixture into solid sticks, letting it rest and dry. When needed, the stick touched stone, water joined it again, and black liquid returned, ready to leave soft trails across silk or bamboo. There was no excitement in this, only repetition. Grinding, mixing, waiting. Grinding again, ink carried a faint scent. Smoke, earth, sometimes a trace of plant sweetness. It was not unpleasant. It was simply present, like dust in sunlight. Those who worked with ink often sat for long hours. The world around them continued in its usual rhythm. Footsteps. Outside, whined against walls. A distant animal calling once, then quiet again. The hand moved slowly, dipping, lifting, touching surface, lifting again. A patient dance of small motions. Sometimes the ink grew too thin and faded into grey. Sometimes it grew too thick and resisted movement. Adjustments were made without urgency. A drop of water, a little more soot, a longer pause. Nothing dramatic, nothing sudden. And so the first true ink slowly became part of daily life. Not everywhere, not all at once, but in small quiet places where time felt wide and unhurried. The marks they left behind did not shout across centuries. They whispered, a symbol pressed into papyrus, a character resting on bamboo, a dark curve. On clay, each one small, each one steady, each one carrying a fragment of human noticing. Even now, if one imagines those early rooms, they feel dim and calm. A low table, a shallow bowl of dark liquid, a brush resting gently at its edge, the surface waiting, the hand hovering, not rushing, not forcing, only ready. Outside, the world continues its endless turning. Rivers flow, dust rises, stars appear, one by one, in slow, quiet patterns. And inside, a simple mark forms again, soft and dark, remaining. Long after the hand has grown still, the dark line rests where it has been placed, quiet and certain. Nothing around it seems to hurry. The room remains dim, touched only by a thin ribbon of light that slips gently through a narrow opening. Dust floats in that light, slow and unbothered, drifting as if time itself has softened. The hand that made the mark pauses, not from fatigue, but from habit. Ink invites patience, and patience answers calmly. Across distant lands, the practice continues, not loudly, not widely, but steadily. In river valleys where water moves in long, thoughtful curves, scribes sit beside low tables, their tools simple and familiar. A shallow dish holds dark liquid, still as night. A brush rests quietly at its edge, waiting without demand. The surface before them, pale and smooth, seems almost to breathe, ready to receive another small trace of thought. The making of ink remains a slow ritual. Soot is gathered from the quiet heart of burned wood, brushed gently from darkened surfaces. Where smoke once touched, it is fine, soft, and weightless, like shadow turned to dust. Water joins it slowly. Gum from plants, sticky and patient, binds the mixture. Fingers stir, not quickly, not with force, only enough to guide the elements into calm unity. Nothing dramatic happens. The mixture darkens, thickens, settles. A faint scent rises, smoky and earthy, familiar and mild. The air holds it for a moment, then lets it drift away. Ink does not demand attention. It simply becomes ready. Somewhere, a scribe lifts the brush again. The bristles gather a small drop of darkness, holding it carefully, like a secret. The hand moves toward the surface, steady and unhurried. Contact is soft. The ink touches, spreads slightly, and remains. A shape forms, not hurried, not perfect, just present. In ancient settlements, these shapes begin to gather meaning. A symbol may represent grain stored for winter. Another may stand for water or land, or a name spoken quietly at dusk. The marks do not explain themselves. They do not need to. Those who understand them read gently, without urgency, as if listening to a slow voice carried on evening air. Time passes in long stretches. Morning light grows warm, then fades. Evening returns, bringing cool stillness. The ink dries, deepening in color, becoming part of the surface itself. It does not shine. It does not call for notice. Yet it remains long after voices have faded. In other regions, where bamboo grows tall and flexible, early writers prepare narrow strips, smoothing them carefully. Ink, dark and soft, meets the pale surface again. The brush glides slowly, sometimes pausing mid-motion, as if listening to something distant and quiet. The line continues, then rests. Nothing forces the next movement. It comes when it is ready. The rhythm of inkwork becomes part of life's gentle repetition. Grinding soot, mixing water, testing thickness, waiting for the surface to dry. These small actions repeat across days, across seasons, across years that pass almost unnoticed. There is comfort in this repetition. Nothing unexpected. Nothing sharp. Only the slow continuation of simple motions. Sometimes the ink behaves differently. Humid air makes it spread wider than expected. Dry air makes it cling and darken. The scribe notices, adjusts, continues. A drop of water softens it. A pause thickens it. No frustration rises. Ink, like time, asks only quiet cooperation. In places where clay tablets are used, ink sometimes joins carved marks, filling shallow grooves with darkness, making them easier to see. The liquid settles into the small valleys of shaped earth, deepening shadows, resting in silence. When dry, the marks appear calm and certain, like footprints preserved in soft ground long after the traveler has gone. There are moments when the brush hovers without touching, suspended between motion and stillness. In that pause lives a gentle awareness. The scribe listens, perhaps not to sound, but to rhythm. Breath in, breath out. The hand lowers again, and another mark quietly joins the others. Night returns, often during these long practices. Oil lamps glow softly, their small flames steady and warm. The light reflects faintly on the surface of wet ink, then fades as it dries. Outside, wind moves through reeds, making a low whisper that comes and goes. Somewhere, water touches shore in slow. Repeating sighs. Ink does not sleep, yet it rests. A finished line remains calm, holding memory without effort. It does not know it is preserving thought. It does not know centuries will pass above it. It simply exists, dark and quiet, part of a surface that once was blank. Over time, the making of ink becomes more refined, though still gentle. Some mixtures grow smoother, flowing more easily from brush to surface. Others deepen in color, holding a darkness that seems soft rather than heavy. But even as small improvements appear, the spirit of the work does not change. It remains slow, repetitive, peaceful. Those who sit beside ink often sit beside silence. Words are not always needed. The sound of grinding, the faint brush against surface, the small tap of tool against bowl. These are enough. The world outside continues, seasons turning without announcement, stars shifting in quiet patterns across wide skies. And still, in a dim room somewhere in that distant past, a hand lifts, dips, and moves again, leaving another soft trail of darkness that will remain calm and steady long after the motion that created it has faded into stillness. The soft trail of darkness remains, steady and untroubled, as if it has always been there. Nothing around it asks for movement. The room breathes in long, slow silence. The hand that formed the mark rests nearby, neither tense nor tired, simply still. Ink, once flowing, now settles into quiet permanence, holding its place without effort. Outside, night deepens. The last traces of warmth fade from the air, leaving a cool stillness that feels gentle and wide. The world does not stop, yet nothing seems to rush. Somewhere beyond the walls, water moves slowly against earth, repeating the same soft sound it has always made. The steady rhythm continues, unnoticed. Like time passing without announcement, in distant regions, far from one another, similar scenes unfold. A bowl of dark liquid, a brush resting at its edge, a patient figure seated beside a simple surface. The repetition is almost identical, though no one has planned it. Ink is made, used, and remade, quietly entering the pattern of daily life. Some mixtures grow smoother, guided by small discoveries that arrive without noise. A different plant gum makes the liquid cling more gently. Finer soot deepens the darkness. A longer grinding brings a softer flow. These changes are not celebrated. They simply become part of the process, absorbed into the calm rhythm of making dot. In certain places, the preparation itself becomes almost meditative. A stone slab rests flat and cool. A solid ink stick touches its surface. Water is added slowly. The stick moves in small circles, again and again, releasing darkness into the shallow pool. The motion is steady, unhurried, repeating until the liquid grows rich and deep. There is no need to think. The hands remember. The faint scent of smoke lingers. It does not demand attention. It is only there, soft and familiar, like the memory of a distant fire long after its light has faded. When the brush lifts again, the ink follows willingly, gathering into its fine fibers. The first touch to the surface is almost silent. A line appears, slow and deliberate. It does not rush toward completion. It grows, breath by breath, until it rests among earlier marks that wait quietly beside it. These marks begin to form quiet collections. Records of trade, symbols of land, names of people whose voices have long since softened into silence. None of it feels grand. None of it seeks importance. Yet each small mark holds a fragment of presence, a gentle refusal to vanish completely. Sometimes, a mark fades slightly as it dries, softening at the edges. Sometimes it remains bold and dark, holding its shape for years beyond counting. The difference is accepted without concern. Ink, like weather, follows its own quiet nature. The tools remain simple. Bowls of clay or stone, brushes shaped from plant fibers or animal hair, smooth surfaces prepared with care. Nothing excessive, nothing hurried, only what is needed and nothing more. Seasons continue their slow turning. Warm days become cooler. Rivers rise, then fall. Crops grow, then are gathered. Through all of it, ink remains present, waiting patiently in small containers, ready to flow when called upon, resting when left alone. In some quiet rooms, multiple surfaces lie side by side, each holding rows of dark marks. The arrangement appears calm, almost orderly, though no strict pattern is forced. A soft sense of continuity lives in these lines, like footsteps following one another across soft ground. The work often continues into late hours. Oil lamps flicker. Gently, their small flames steady against the surrounding dark. The light reflects faintly on fresh ink, then fades as it dries into stillness. The hand moves slower now, not from weariness, but from the deep quiet that night invites. Occasionally, the brush pauses mid-air, suspended between motion and rest. In that pause, nothing is missing. The silence feels complete. Breath enters, leaves, and the hand lowers once more, forming another small trace that will remain long after the moment has passed. No one in those early times speaks of invention. No one announces discovery. Ink simply becomes, slowly weaving itself into the fabric of human presence. A tool of memory, a quiet companion to thought, a dark whisper against pale surfaces. And so, across long stretches of time, the first writing inks continue their silent journey, flowing, drying, resting, appearing, fading, remaining, never hurried, never loud. Always calm, the room grows quieter still. The bowl of ink rests undisturbed. The brush lies gently beside it, darkened at its tip, waiting without expectation. Outside, the night deepens, vast and peaceful, holding the world in soft stillness. Somewhere, unseen and unhurried, another mark will form. Not now, not soon, but in its own quiet time. Morning arrives without sound. A pale light slowly replaces the deep blue of night, touching rooftops, walls, and quiet courtyards with gentle certainty. Nothing begins suddenly. The world simply continues, as it always has, moving from darkness into light without effort or announcement. Inside a still room, the bowl of ink remains where it rested through the night. Unchanged, patient, waiting. The surface beside it holds yesterday's marks. Now fully dry, calm, and settled into their place, they do not shine. They do not move. Yet they seem quietly alive, holding traces of moments that once passed softly through human hands. A faint breeze enters through a narrow opening, stirring nothing, only reminding the room that the outside world continues its slow turning. The hand returns, not hurried, not restless. There is no urgency in this work. The brush is lifted gently, as if waking from sleep. Its tip, darkened from many uses, touches water first, softening, preparing, remembering its purpose without thought. Then it meets the ink, again, drawing. In the quiet darkness like breath-filling lungs. Elsewhere, in distant lands warmed by wide rivers and open skies, similar mornings unfold. Scribes sit cross-legged on woven mats. Some work on papyrus, others on bamboo, others on thin wooden tablets. The surfaces differ, yet the rhythm remains the same. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait, ink, behaves differently in morning light, cooler. Air makes it slightly thicker, slower to spread. The scribe notices without judgment. A drop of water is added, stirred gently. The liquid loosens, dark and smooth once more. Nothing is forced. Ink prefers cooperation in ancient Egypt, near the quiet flow of the Nile. Scribes prepare black ink from soot and gum, much as they always have. Beside it, another color sometimes rests in a small container. Red, made from earth, rich with iron. The red ink is used sparingly, softly marking headings, names, or gentle beginnings. It does not shout. It simply rests beside the black, like a second voice speaking in a lower tone. The preparation of red ink is just as calm. Earth is ground into fine powder, mixed slowly with water and binder. The color deepens, becoming warm and steady. When placed beside black ink, the contrast feels quiet rather than bold. Like sunset meeting night. Further east, early Chinese scholars move in similar stillness. Ink sticks glide across smooth stones, releasing dark liquid into shallow pools. The circular grinding motion repeats again and again, steady as breathing. This preparation is never rushed. The act itself feels as important as the writing that follows, though no one says this aloud. As the brush touches silk or bamboo, the ink flows with soft obedience. Characters form slowly, each stroke deliberate, balanced, calm. There is no hurry to finish. The act of forming the mark is enough. In other regions, traders and record keepers use ink to track goods, exchanges, and small movements of daily life. Numbers appear in neat rows. Symbols repeat across surfaces. These marks do not seek beauty, yet a quiet order lives within them. Even repetition feels gentle, like footsteps along a familiar path. Hours pass unnoticed. Light grows brighter, then softer again. The ink dries, darkening slightly as it settles deeper into the surface. Some marks appear almost velvety, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Others remain sharp and clear, as if freshly made even after time has passed. Occasionally, a mistake occurs. A line grows too thick. A drop falls where it was not intended. The scribe pauses, observing without distress. Sometimes the mark is left as it is. Sometimes a cloth softens it gently. Nothing dramatic follows. Imperfection belongs quietly within the flow of work. In a quiet corner, prepared surfaces rest in small stacks, each holding rows of dark traces. Some are newly written, still faintly damp. Others are older, their ink fully settled, unchanged by passing days. Together they form a soft archive of presence, though no one calls it that. The tools themselves show signs of time. Brushes wear slowly, their fibers spreading slightly with age. Bowls carry faint stains from countless mixtures. Stones used for Grinding becomes smoother, shaped by years of quiet circles. Nothing is replaced quickly. Objects remain until they quietly fade from use. Afternoon drifts in, warm and slow. Outside, distant voices rise and fall, softened by distance. Somewhere, water touches shore in repeating sighs. The rhythm of inkwork continues, unchanged, steady as ever. Sometimes, the scribe pauses simply to watch the ink dry. The transformation is subtle. Wet darkness becomes matte and calm. The surface absorbs the liquid, holding it gently. The mark no longer moves. It rests, complete in its stillness. There is comfort in this quiet certainty. The ink does not vanish. It does not forget its place. It remains, holding memory without effort, asking for nothing in return. As light begins its slow descent toward evening, shadows lengthen across the room. The bowl of ink grows darker in the fading glow. The brush rests once more beside it, patient, familiar, ready for the next unhurried moment when hand and ink will meet again. And another soft trace will quietly join the long, silent story of human presence. Evening moves in with quiet patience. The warmth of the afternoon softens, and shadows stretch slowly across the floor. Nothing changes suddenly. Light fades gently, like a whisper growing softer. Inside the still room, the ink bowl rests where it has always rested, holding its dart. Surface without motion, without thought, simply present. The brush is lifted once more, not out of urgency, but from habit shaped by long repetition. Its fibers carry faint traces of earlier lines, memories of movements too small to remember clearly. When dipped into the ink, the tip darkens again, gathering a small pool of liquid shadow. The hand moves toward the waiting surface, steady and guided by quiet familiarity rather than intention. Elsewhere, across wide landscapes and distant cultures, the same small actions continue. In low-lit chambers, scribes sit beside wooden tables worn smooth by years of patient work. Some write on papyrus sheets stacked neatly beside them. Others use parchment prepared from animal skin, pale and soft beneath careful hands. The ink touches each surface differently, sometimes soaking deeply, sometimes resting lightly above, but always leaving its quiet trace behind. In certain places, the making of ink begins to vary slightly. Some mixtures include plant extracts that change the tone of the darkness, making it warmer, softer, or faintly brown. These variations are not dramatic. They are subtle shifts, noticed only by those who work closely with ink each day. The process remains slow, grounded in repetition, shaped by observation rather than invention. A shallow grinding stone rests on a table nearby. Its surface is smooth from countless circular motions. When water touches the stone and an inkstick begins it, slow rotation, a faint sound emerges, soft and steady, like distant rain. The motion continues without hurry, forming a quiet rhythm that fills the stillness of the room. Drop by drop, darkness gathers, deepening into the familiar liquid that will soon rest on waiting surfaces. Outside, the sky dims toward evening blue. The air grows cooler, carrying faint scents of earth and water. Somewhere far away, a single bird calls once, then falls silent again. The world continues, steady and untroubled. Back inside, the brush moves slowly, forming another mark. The line begins thin, then widens slightly, then narrows again, guided by gentle pressure. It does not strive for perfection. It simply becomes what it is, resting beside earlier marks that wait quietly, unchanged by passing hours. Some records written in ink hold practical meaning, a measure of grain stored safely, a list of goods exchanged, a note of something small. Yet worth remembering, these writings do not seek beauty or recognition. They exist for presence, for continuity, for the quiet reassurance that something has been noted and will not fade immediately into silence. As the ink dries, its surface changes slowly. Wet shine becomes matte calm. The darkness deepens, settling into the material beneath it. Time passes, though it feels almost still. In certain quiet rooms, more than one scribe works side by side. They do not speak often. Words are unnecessary here. The faint scratching of brush on surface, the soft swirl of grinding, the occasional shift of cloth against wood. These small sounds form a gentle rhythm, like waves repeating against a distant shore. Sometimes a pause stretches longer than expected. The brush hovers above the surface, suspended between motion and rest. Nothing feels incomplete. The silence is full, calm, steady. Breath moves in and out, slow and unnoticed. Then, without urgency, the hand lowers again, and another small mark joins the quiet gathering of lines. In colder seasons, ink thickens slightly, moving slower beneath the brush. A little warmth from nearby lamps softens it again. In warmer air, it flows more easily, spreading gently across the surface. These changes are accepted as part of its nature, never resisted, never forced. Over many years, ink becomes more than until it becomes a quiet companion to human presence. It listens without hearing, remembers without knowing, rests without sleep. The hands that use it come and go, yet the marks remain, calm and steady, holding fragments of moments long past. Night deepens further. Oil lamps glow softly, their small flames steady against the surrounding dark. The light touches the surface of fresh ink for a brief moment, before fading as the mark dries into stillness. Outside, wind moves lightly across the land, unseen and gentle. The brush is placed beside the bowl once more. The ink rests undisturbed, its dark surface smooth and quiet. Nothing more is needed now. The room settles into silence again, holding the calm presence of marks that will remain long after the hand that formed them has grown still. The room holds its silence like a soft blanket. Nothing asks to be finished. Nothing presses forward. The ink bowl rests in quiet stillness, its dark surface smooth, almost mirror-like in the low glow of a nearby lamp. The brush lies beside it, calm and untroubled, as if it too has entered a gentle rest. Outside, the night continues its slow unfolding. The air cools little by little. Somewhere, water moves against earth in a quiet, repeating rhythm. The world does not sleep completely, yet it moves so softly that time feels wide and open. Within this quiet, the presence of ink remains steady, unchanged, patient. Across distant lands, far from one another yet bound by the same slow rhythm, scribes sit. In dim spaces where faint light touches prepared surfaces. Some continue their work, others pause, simply observing the marks that already exist. The lines do not move, they do not fade quickly. They rest, holding memory without effort. In one quiet chamber, an ink stone waits beside a small vessel of Caith. Water. A hand lifts the ink stick and begins the familiar circular motion. The sound is soft, almost like distant breathing. Round and round, slowly, patiently, until the dark liquid gathers once more. This act is repeated so often it requires no thought. The hands remember what to do, even in silence. When the brush touches the ink again, the tip darkens gently. A new line begins, soft and steady, joining earlier marks without disturbing them. Nothing feels rushed. The movement is slow enough that each small change can be noticed, yet calm enough that no effort is felt. Some of these marks carry small records of everyday life. A measure of grain counted carefully, a symbol marking the turning of a season, a name written quietly, without ceremony. The meaning may be simple, but the act of marking remains steady and certain, like footsteps that continue even when the traveler is unseen. Over time, inks begin to vary slightly from place to place. Some mixtures grow deeper in tone, almost velvety in darkness. Others soften toward grey, light and gentle. Occasionally, plant extracts are added, giving the ink a faint warmth or subtle texture. These changes are small, almost invisible, yet they shape the quiet character of each mark. In warmer climates, ink dries more quickly, settling fast into the surface beneath. In cooler air, it remains wet a little longer, reflecting faint light before turning matte and still. The scribe notices these changes without concern, adjusting with small motions. A touch more water, a slower stroke, a longer pause. Nothing forced, nothing hurried. Nearby, finished surfaces rest in careful stacks. Some hold rows of symbols, calm and orderly. Others show simple drawings, shapes that suggest land, water, animals, or tools. The ink has dried fully, its darkness now part of the surface itself. It does not shine. It does not call for attention. Yet it remains, quietly holding presence long after the moment of its making. Sometimes a small imperfection appears. A drop falls unexpectedly. A line bends where it was meant to remain straight. The scribe pauses, observing without tension. Often, the mark is left as it is, becoming part of the gentle irregularity that belongs to all handmade things. Perfection is not required here. Continuity is enough. As hours pass, the lamp flame grows smaller, its light softer and more golden. Shadows deepen in the corners of the room. The ink bowl reflects almost nothing now, its dark surface blending into the quiet night. The brush remains still, carrying faint traces of the last line it formed. In distant places, beyond rivers and deserts, beyond forests and hills, similar quiet scenes unfold. Ink prepared, ink used, ink resting. The same slow rhythm repeated. Across generations, across landscapes, across time itself. Ink simply continues, calm and steady. There is something comforting in this continuity. The knowledge that small marks, made without urgency, can remain long after voices have faded. The understanding that memory does not always need noise or grandeur. Sometimes, it only needs a quiet line of darkness resting gently on a wait-in. Surface.night deepens further. The air grows cooler, stiller. The prepared surfaces rest undisturbed. The bowl of ink remains full enough for another mark, though none is needed now. The brush lies beside it, patient as always, ready for another quiet moment that will come in its own time. Far outside, the sky stretches wide and silent, scattered with faint, steady stars. Beneath that vast stillness, somewhere unseen, another hand will one day lift another brush, dip into another pool of dark liquid, and leave another soft mark that will quietly join the endless, unhurried story of ink. A gentle quiet continues, as if the night never fully left and the day has only softly arrived. The world feels half awake, resting between motion and stillness. In a small, dim space, the ink bowl waits as it always has, unchanged, holding its dark calm without effort. Nothing around it demands movement. Nothing insists on time. Touching the edges of wooden tables and pale surfaces prepared long before, the marks made yesterday rest where they were placed, settled into their stillness, carrying faint echoes of hands that moved without hurry. Dust drifts in the soft light, turning slowly in silent circles. Unnoticed and undisturbed, a figure sits beside the table once more. The posture is familiar, neither rigid nor relaxed, simply balanced. The brush is lifted gently, its fibers worn slightly from years of quiet use. When dipped into the ink, the darkness gathers again, deep and soft, like shadow drawn into a single point. The hand moves forward, not to finish anything, only to continue in distant lands, separated by mountains, rivers, and wide open skies. Similar mornings unfold in desert settlements, near calm waters, and within shaded courtyards. Scribes begin their slow work. The tools differ slightly, the surfaces vary, yet the rhythm remains the same. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. Ink has now become part of the quiet structure of daily life. It no longer feels new, nor does it feel old. It simply exists, woven into routine like the rising of light or the fading of dusk. Binder mix slowly. The dark liquid forms without sound, without ceremony. Somewhere, a grinding stone rests cool beneath careful hands. The ink stick moves across it in small, patient circles. The sound is faint, steady, almost like breathing. Round and round, again and again, until darkness gathers into the shallow pool. This motion is known deeply, requiring no thought, only presence. When the brush meets the prepared surface, the ink flows with quiet obedience. A line appears thin at first, then fuller, then soft again. The movement is slow enough that the mark forms and rests, joining others that wait silently nearby. These marks begin to shape simple continuity, records of harvest, small tallies of exchange, quiet notes of time. Passing, none of it seeks importance. None of it announces itself. Something that refuses to fade completely. As the day moves forward, light shifts gently across the room. Shadows shorten, then stretch again. The ink dries slowly, its surface changing from faint shine to deep calm. The darkness settles into the material beneath, becoming part of it, inseparable and still. Occasionally, the hand pauses above the surface, suspended in quiet thought. Nothing feels unfinished. The silence feels full, complete, steady. Breath enters, leaves, and the hand lowers once more, forming another soft trace that will remain long after the motion fades. In some regions, scribes begin to experiment softly with the flow of ink, a slightly thicker mixture for darker marks, a thinner one for lighter lines. These changes are small, subtle, almost invisible, yet they shape the quiet character of writing. No one rushes to perfect it. Ink prefers patience, and patience continues. Nearby, finished surfaces rest in gentle stacks. Some hold rows of symbols, steady and calm. Others carry simple drawings, shapes of land, water, or familiar tools. The ink has dried fully, its presence quiet yet certain, unchanged by passing hours. Outside, the world moves slowly. Wind brushes against distant leaves. Water glides along its quiet path. Voices rise faintly somewhere far away, then soften into stillness again. The rhythm of life continues, steady and untroubled. Back inside, the brush returns to the bowl. The ink gathers once more, dark and smooth. Another line begins, slow and deliberate, forming without force. It does not seek perfection. It only seeks presence. There is comfort in this repetition. The same small actions, repeated across days and seasons, across years that pass almost unnoticed. Grinding, mixing, dipping, writing, waiting. The rhythm continues without effort, like the slow turning of the earth beneath a quiet sky. As the light begins to soften toward afternoon, the room grows warmer, calmer still. The ink bowl rests quietly, holding enough darkness for many more marks. The brush pauses once more beside it, patient and familiar, ready to move again whenever the slow, unhurried flow of time invites another gentle line to appear. Afternoon settles slowly, like a soft cloth placed gently over the day. Nothing feels unfinished. The ink bowl remains where it always rests, holding its dark surface in steady stillness. The brush lies nearby. The hand lifts the brush, not hurried, not delayed, simply ready. The fibers touch the ink, gathering a small pool of darkness, smooth and deep. For a moment, the brush hovers, suspended between motion and rest. Then it lowers, and another quiet mark begins to form. Across distant lands, beyond wide rivers and soft hills, similar scenes unfold. In shaded courtyards, under woven roofs, and beside narrow windows, scribes continue their slow work. The rhythm remains unchanged. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. These small actions repeat without effort, like breathing in calm air. In some places, ink begins to carry subtle differences shaped by the earth itself. Soot from different woods gives slightly varied tones. Some appear softer, others deeper. Plant gums very gently, affecting how the ink flows and settles. These changes are noticed quietly, without excitement, becoming part of the slow evolution. Of the craft, the preparation remains simple. A stone slab, cool and smooth. A stick of hardened ink. A small vessel of water. The stick moves across the stone in steady circles, releasing darkness slowly, patiently. The sound is faint, rhythmic, almost like a distant heartbeat softened by distance. Nothing rushes. Nothing demands completion. When the brush meets the prepared surface, the ink responds gently. A thin line appears, wavering slightly, then steadying. As the hand continues, each movement feels deliberate yet effortless, guided by long familiarity rather than thought. The mark grows, rests, and becomes part of the quiet gathering of lines that cover the surface. These marks carry small reflections of life, a count of stored goods, a note of time passing, a simple symbol marking something seen, something remembered. None of it seeks grandeur. None of it demands attention. Yet each mark holds present, calm and steady, resisting the fading silence of time. As the ink dries, its surface softens, losing its faint shine and becoming matte, quiet and still. The darkness deepens slightly, settling into the material. Beneath, time moves gently, almost unnoticed, as if the room itself has slowed. In one quiet corner, several surfaces lie side by side. Some are newly written, their ink still faintly damp. Others are older, their marks fully settled, unchanged by many passing days. Together they form a quiet continuity, a soft record of moments long gone yet still present. Occasionally, a small irregularity appears. A drop spreads wider than expected. A line curves where it was meant to remain straight. The scribe pauses, observing without concern. Sometimes the mark is left untouched, accepted as part of the gentle imperfection that belongs to all handmade things. Perfection is not required. Presence is enough. Outside, the air shifts slightly. A faint breeze moves across distant leaves, creating a soft rustling that comes and goes. Somewhere, water continues its slow journey, touching earth in steady repetition. The world remains calm, unhurried, familiar back inside. The brush continues its quiet dance. Dip, lift, touch, rest. The movement repeats again and again, each cycle gentle, unforced, steady. The hand does not tire. The rhythm itself carries. The motion forward, as light begins to lean toward evening. Shadows lengthen across the floor. The glow in the room grows softer, warmer, more subdued. The ink bowl darkens further, its surface reflecting almost nothing now. The brush pauses beside it, resting once more in quiet stillness. There is comfort in this slow repetition. The knowledge that nothing must be hurried. The understanding that small marks, made with patience, can remain long after the moment has passed. Ink does not rush. It does not forget. It simply remains. And so, in quiet rooms across distant lands, the slow work continues. Another mark forms. Another line rests. Another small trace joins the endless, gentle story carried in darkness upon waiting surfaces. Evening returns with its familiar softness, covering the day in quiet shadow. The room grows dim once more, the edges of objects fading gently into stillness. The ink bowl rests unmoving, its dark surface deep and calm, holding no reflection now, only presence. The brush lies beside it, carrying the faint memory of its last motion, waiting without expectation. Nothing urges the moment forward. The air cools slowly, almost unnoticed. Outside, distant sounds soften until they become part of silence itself. Within this calm, the ink remains, steady and unchanged, holding its quiet role in the slow passage of time. In faraway places, separated by rivers and mountains, yet bound by the same gentle rhythm, other rooms settle into evening stillness. Lamps glow faintly, casting warm, small circles of light over prepared surfaces. The marks made earlier in the day rest quietly, dry and certain, their darkness soft, yet enduring. Some scribes continue working into the night, their movements slow, unhurried, guided by long familiarity rather than need. The brush lifts, dips, and touches again, leaving another calm trace. The sound is barely there, a faint whisper against the surface. Each line appears, settles, and becomes still, joining countless others that wait in quiet company. The preparation of ink continues, even in late hours. A grinding stone receives a few drops of water. The ink stick moves across it in slow, circular motion, round and round, patient and steady, until darkness gathers once more. The faint scent of soot lingers in the air, soft and familiar, like the memory of distant smoke. Somewhere, a small imperfection appears in a fresh mark. The line grows thicker than expected, spreading slightly across the surface. The scribe pauses, observing calmly. There is no frustration, no urgency to correct. Often, the mark is left as it is, becoming part of the quiet irregularity that belongs to all human work. Nearby, finished surfaces rest in gentle stacks. Some carry rows of careful symbols. Others hold simple shapes, soft and minimal. The ink has dried fully, its darkness absorbed into the material beneath. It no longer changes. It no longer moves. Yet it remains, steady and present, holding fragments of moments long past. Outside, the sky deepens into quiet night. Stars appear slowly, one by one, scattered across a wide, silent expanse. The air is still. The world feels vast and calm. Moving without noise, without urgency, back inside. The brush continues its slow rhythm, dip, lift, touch, rest. Each motion gentle, each line deliberate, each pause unforced. The hand moves not to finish, but simply to continue. The act itself feels enough. Ink, once a simple mixture of soot and water, has now become part of human continuity. It carries memory without knowing. It holds presence without effort. It rests quietly between moments of motion, patient as ever. As hours pass, the lamp flame grows smaller, its light softer and more golden. Shadows deepen across the room. The ink bowl blends into darkness, its surface calm and still. The brush is placed beside it once more, resting gently, carrying the faint trace of its last line. Silence fills the space, steady and complete. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is asked. The prepared surfaces remain undisturbed, holding their quiet marks, unchanged by the slow passage of night. Far beyond, across unseen lands and quiet waters, the same gentle story continues. Ink prepared, ink used, ink resting, the rhythm unbroken, flowing softly through generations, through time, through stillness. And somewhere, in a quiet moment not yet arrived, another hand will lift another brush, dip into another pool of darkness, and leave another small, steady mark that will join the endless, unhurried whisper of ink across waiting surfaces. Morning returns in a soft and familiar way, as if the night has simply folded itself into light. The room is quiet, holding the calm of many slow days. The ink bowl rests where it has always rested, unchanged, patient, dark and still. The brush lies beside it, silent, carrying the memory of countless small motions that once shaped quiet lines upon waiting surfaces. The first light enters gently, touching the table, the prepared sheets, the edges of tools worn smooth by years of use. Dust drifts slowly through the pale glow, turning without purpose, without hurry. Nothing feels new, nothing feels old. Everything simply continues. A hand returns, steady and unhurried, guided by familiarity rather than need. The brush is lifted, its fibers soft and slightly spread from long service. When it meets the ink, the darkness gathers once more, deep and calm, flowing easily into the waiting tip. The hand pauses, suspended between motion and stillness, then lowers slowly, forming another quiet mark. Across distant lands, the same. Gentle rhythm unfolds, in shaded courtyards, beside narrow windows, in small rooms warmed by soft light, scribes begin their day. The surfaces differ, some smooth and pale, some fibrous, some slightly rough, yet the movement remains unchanged. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. Ink has now settled deeply into daily life. It is no longer a novelty, nor a curiosity. It simply belongs. The preparation continues with the same patient care. Soot gathered from quiet fires, water added slowly, gum mixed gently. The dark liquid forms, smooth and steady, without sound. Or ceremony, in some places, new shades begin to appear, soft and subtle. Browns made from natural earth, faint warm tones drawn from plant extracts. These colors do not replace the deep black of soot, but sit beside it quietly, like distant variations in evening light. Their presence is calm, almost unnoticed, yet they add gentle richness to the silent world of marks. A grinding stone rests cool beneath careful hands. The ink stick moves across its surface in slow circles, steady and unbroken. The faint sound fills the stillness, soft as distant rain. Darkness gathers in the shallow pool, deepening with each quiet motion. The hands move without thought, guided by repetition learned over many quiet years. When the brush touches the prepared surface, the ink flows with quiet obedience. A line begins, thin and soft, widening slightly, then narrowing again. Each motion feels deliberate yet effortless, shaped by patience rather than intention. The mark rests beside earlier lines, joining the quiet gathering that continues to grow. These marks hold small reflections of life, a simple record of trade, a symbol marking the passing of a season, a name written gently, without ceremony. None of it seeks importance, none of it demands notice, yet each mark remains steady and calm, resisting the quiet fading of time. As morning slowly becomes afternoon, light shifts across the room. Shadows move gently, lengthening, softening. The ink dries, losing its faint shine and settling into stillness. The darkness becomes part of the surface itself, inseparable and quiet. Sometimes the brush pauses mid-air, suspended in silence. Nothing feels unfinished. The stillness feels full, complete, steady. Breath moves in, leaves, and the hand lowers. Once more, forming another soft trace that will remain long after the moment has passed. Nearby, Finished surfaces rest in gentle stacks. Some carry rows of careful symbols, calm and balanced. Others hold simple shapes, quiet drawings of land, water, or tools. The ink has dried fully, unchanged by passing hours, holding its presence without effort. Outside, the world continues its ess. Slow rhythm, a faint breeze moves through distant leaves. Water glides along its quiet path. Somewhere far away, voices rise briefly, then soften again into silence. Nothing disturbs the calm. Back inside, the brush returns to the bowl. The ink gathers once more, dark and smooth. Another line forms, steady and deliberate, appearing without force. It does not seek perfection. It only seeks presence. There is comfort in this repetition. The same small actions, repeated across days and seasons, across years that pass almost unnoticed, grinding, mixing, dipping, writing, waiting. The rhythm continues, calm and steady. Like the slow turning of the earth beneath a quiet sky, as the light begins to soften toward afternoon's quiet warmth. The room settles deeper into stillness. The ink bowl rests quietly, holding enough darkness for many more gentle marks. The brush pauses beside it once more, patient and familiar, ready for the next slow, unhurried moment when ink will flow again, and another quiet line will appear. Afternoon drifts in like a long, quiet breath. The light grows warmer and softer, resting gently across the room. Nothing presses forward. Nothing asks to be completed. The ink bowl remains in its place, dark and calm, its surface smooth and undisturbed. The brush lies beside it, still and patient, holding the faint memory of countless quiet strokes. A hand moves again, slow and steady, guided by the calm rhythm of repetition. The brush is lifted gently, its fibers touching the ink and gathering a small pool of darkness. For a moment, it hovers above the surface, suspended in quiet balance. Then, without urgency, it lowers, and another mark begins to form. Across distant lands, under shaded roofs, and within quiet chambers, scribes continue their familiar work. The surfaces vary, yet the movement remains unchanged. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. These small actions repeat like gentle waves, steady and unforced, carried by time rather than intention. In some regions, the making of ink grows slightly more refined, though never hurried. Soot is ground finer, water measured with quiet care, plant gum mixed until the liquid flows smoothly and evenly. The process remains calm, shaped by patience rather than discovery. No single moment defines it. Ink simply continues to become. A grinding stone rests nearby, cool and worn smooth by years of circular motion. The ink stick moves across it in slow, quiet loops. The faint sound fills the room softly, like distant rain falling on calm water. Darkness gathers drop by drop, deep and gentle, forming the familiar liquid that will soon leave another quiet trace. When the brush touches the prepared surface, the ink responds with soft obedience. A line appears, thin and steady, widening slightly, then softening again. The hand does not hurry. It moves with quiet certainty, shaped by long familiarity. The mark rests beside earlier lines, joining the calm continuity that slowly grows across the surface. These marks carry simple reflections of daily life. A count of stored goods, a symbol marking the passing of time, a small record of something seen, something remembered. None of it seeks recognition, none of it demands attention. Yet each mark holds presence, calm and steady, resisting the fading silence of time. As the ink dries, its faint shine disappears, leaving a soft matte darkness. The mark settles fully into the surface beneath, becoming part of it, unchanged by passing moments. The room remains quiet, steady, unhurried. In a corner, finished surfaces rest in careful stacks. Some hold neat rows of symbols, balanced and calm. Others carry simple drawings, shapes of land, water, or familiar tools. The ink has dried completely, its darkness gentle yet certain, holding fragments of moments long past. Occasionally, a small irregularity appears. A line curves slightly. A drop spreads wider than expected. The scribe pauses, observing without concern. Sometimes the mark is left untouched, accepted as part of the quiet imperfection that belongs to all handmade things. Perfection is not required. Presence is enough. Outside, the air moves softly. A faint breeze brushes distant leaves. Water continues its slow journey, touching earth in steady repetition. The world remains calm, familiar, unchanged. Back inside, the brush continues its gentle rhythm. Dip, lift, touch, rest. Each motion slow, deliberate, unforced. The hand moves not to finish, but simply to continue. The act itself feels complete, as the afternoon light begins to soften toward evening. Shadows lengthen quietly across the floor. The glow in the room grows dimmer, warmer, more subdued. The ink bowl darkens further, its surface reflecting almost nothing now. The brush is placed beside it once more, resting gently, patient as ever. There is comfort in this slow repetition, the knowledge that nothing must be hurried, the understanding that small marks, made with quiet care, can remain long after the moment has passed. Ink does not rush. It does not forget. It simply remains calm and steady, waiting for another unhurried moment when a hand will lift the brush again and another soft line will join the endless, gentle story carried in darkness upon waiting surfaces. Evening arrives once more, quiet and familiar, as if it has always been waiting just beyond the fading light. The room grows dim, edges softening, shapes blending gently into shadow. The ink bowl rests where it has rested through many slow days, dark and calm, holding its silent presence without effort. The brush lies beside it, still and patient, carrying faint traces of its last quiet motion. Nothing urges the moment forward. The air cools gently. Outside, distant sounds fade into soft stillness. Somewhere, water moves against earth in a slow, repeating rhythm. The world continues without noise, without haste, without demand. Within this calm, the ink remains steady, unchanged, present, across distant lands, in rooms both small and wide. Lamps begin to glow softly as night deepens. Their light is warm and gentle, touching prepared surfaces where rows of quiet marks rest undisturbed. The darkness of ink appears deeper under this golden glow, calm and certain, unchanged by the passing of hours. Some scribes continue their slow work into the night. Their movements are unhurried, guided by long familiarity rather than need. The brush lifts, dips, and touches again, leaving another quiet line. The sound is faint, almost invisible, a soft whisper against the surface. Each mark forms slowly, settles, and becomes still, joining countless others resting nearby. The preparation of ink continues even in late hours. A grinding stone receives a few drops of water. The inkstick moves across it in steady circles, patient and calm. The faint scent of soot drifts gently through the air, soft and familiar. Darkness gathers in the shallow pool, deepening with each quiet motion, ready once more to flow. Sometimes a mark spreads slightly more than expected, forming a darker pool where the brush first touched. The scribe pauses, observing without concern. There is no urgency to correct, no tension in the moment. Often, the mark is left as it is, becoming part of the quiet irregularity that belongs to all handmade work. Nearby, finished surfaces rest in small, careful stacks. Some hold lines of symbols arranged in steady patterns. Others carry simple shapes, soft drawings that suggest land, water, or familiar tools. The ink is dried fully, its presence calm and enduring, holding fragments of moments long past without effort. Outside, the sky deepens into night. Stars appear slowly, scattered across a vast and silent expanse. The air is still, cool, and gentle. The world feels wide, quiet, and steady, moving without sound, without hurry. Back inside, the brush continues its slow rhythm. Dip, lift, touch, rest. Each motion deliberate, calm, unforced. The hand moves not to finish, but simply to continue. The act itself feels enough, complete in its quiet repetition. Ink, once only a simple mixture of soot and water, now rests deeply within human presence. It holds memory without knowing, carries time without effort, remains steady between moments of motion. The hands that use it change, yet the marks endure, calm and silent. As the night deepens, the lamp flame grows smaller, its glow softer and more golden. Shadows settle into corners. The ink bowl darkens until it almost disappears into stillness. The brush is placed beside it once more, resting gently, carrying the faint trace of its last line. Silence fills the room, steady and complete. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is asked. The prepared surfaces remain undisturbed, holding their quiet marks, unchanged by the slow passage of night. Far beyond, across unseen lands and quiet waters, the same gentle rhythm continues. Ink prepared, ink used, ink resting, flowing softly. Through generations, through stillness, through time itself. And somewhere, in a quiet moment yet to come, another hand will lift another brush, dip into another pool of darkness, and leave another small, steady mark that will join the endless, unhurried whisper of ink across waiting surfaces. A soft morning returns, quiet and unhurried, as if the world has gently opened its eyes. Light slips slowly into the room, touching the edges of the table, the resting brush, and the small bowl of ink that has waited through the long silence. Of night, nothing feels new and nothing feels old. Everything continues in the same calm rhythm, steady and familiar. The air is still, carrying a faint trace of soot and dry earth. Dust drifts quietly in the pale light, moving without direction, without purpose. The prepared surfaces lie undisturbed, holding the dark marks formed in earlier hours. Each line rests where it was placed, calm and certain, unchanged by the slow passing of time. A hand returns once more, steady and patient. The brush is lifted gently, its fibers soft, slightly worn from long and quiet use. When dipped into the ink, the darkness gathers again, deep and smooth, flowing easily into the waiting tip. The hand pauses for a moment, suspended in stillness, then lowers slowly, forming another soft line upon the surface, across distant lands, separated by rivers, forests, and wide silent skies. Similar mornings unfold. In small rooms, beneath woven roofs, and beside narrow windows, scribes begin their quiet work. The tools may differ slightly, the surfaces may vary, yet the rhythm remains unchanged. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. Ink has now become a gentle companion to daily life. Its preparation continues with patient care. Soot gathered from the quiet heart of fires. Water added slowly. Plant gum mixed gently until the liquid forms smooth and dark. There is no ceremony, no urgency, only the calm repetition of a process known by heart. In some places, new textures appear within the ink. Slightly thicker mixtures create deeper, fuller marks. Thinner mixtures flow lightly, forming soft grey lines that seem almost like shadows. These variations are small, subtle, noticed only by careful eyes, yet they shape the quiet character of each surface. Nearby, a grinding stone rests cool and smooth. The inkstick moves across it in slow circles, steady and unbroken. The faint sound fills the stillness, soft and rhythmic, like distant rain falling on calm ground. Darkness gathers slowly in the shallow pool, deepening with each quiet motion. The hands move without thought, guided by years of repetition. When the brush touches the prepared surface, the ink flows gently, obedient and calm. A line begins, thin and steady, widening slightly, then narrowing again. The movement is slow enough to feel each moment, yet calm enough to require no effort. The mark forms and rests, joining earlier lines that wait quietly nearby. These marks hold small reflections of life. A record of simple trade, a symbol marking the turning of seasons, a name written softly, without ceremony. None of it seeks importance, none of it demands attention, yet each mark remains steady and present, holding memory in quiet darkness. As the morning grows into afternoon, light shifts gently across the room. Shadows move slowly, lengthening, softening. The ink dries, losing its faint shine and settling into stillness. The darkness becomes part of the surface itself, calm and enduring. Sometimes, the brush pauses mid-air, suspended in silence. Nothing feels unfinished. The stillness feels full, steady, complete. Breath enters, leaves, and the hand lowers once more, forming another quiet trace that will remain long after the moment has passed. In one corner, finished surpieces rest in gentle stacks. Some carry rows of symbols, calm and balanced. Others hold simple shapes, quiet drawings of land, water, or familiar tools. The ink is dried fully, unchanged by passing hours, holding fragments of moments long gone. Outside, the world continues its slow rhythm. A faint breeze moves across distant leaves. Water glides quietly along its path. Somewhere far away, voices rise briefly, then soften again into silence. Nothing disturbs the calm. Back inside, the brush returns to the bowl. The ink gathers once more, dark and smooth. Another line forms, steady and deliberate, appearing without force. It does not seek perfection. It only seeks presence. There is comfort in this gentle repetition. The same small actions, repeated across days and seasons, across years that pass almost unnoticed. Grinding, mixing, dipping, writing, waiting. The rhythm continues, calm and steady, like the slow turning of the earth beneath a quiet sky. As the light begins to soften toward the quiet warmth of afternoon, the room settles deeper into stillness. The ink bowl rests quietly, holding enough darkness for many more gentle marks. The brush pauses beside it once more, patient and familiar, ready for another slow, unhurried moment when ink will flow again and another quiet line will appear. Afternoon unfolds slowly, as if the day itself has decided to rest for a while. Warm light stretches across the quiet room, touching the table, the smooth stone, and the small bowl of ink that waits in calm stillness. Nothing calls for attention. Nothing feels unfinished. The gentle rhythm continues, steady and familiar. The brush is lifted again, softly, almost without sound. Its fibers gather a small pool of darkness from the ink, deep and smooth, like shadow, resting on water. For a brief moment, the brush hovers above the surface, suspended between movement and stillness. Then, with quiet certainty, it lowers, and another line begins to form. Across distant lands, beneath quiet roofs, and beside narrow openings where light enters gently, scribes continue their patient work. The surfaces vary. Some are soft and pale, others slightly rough, carrying the faint texture of natural fibers, yet the motion remains unchanged. Dip, pause, touch, lift, wait. These small actions repeat like a calm heartbeat, steady and uniform. In some regions, the preparation of ink becomes a little more refined, though still gentle and slow. Finer soot creates smoother darkness. Water is added with quiet care, neither too much nor too little. Plant gums are mixed until the liquid flows evenly, forming marks that settle calmly without spreading too far. The process is not hurried. It unfolds in its own quiet time. Nearby, a grinding stone rests cool and worn smooth. The inkstick moves across it in slow, steady circles. The faint sound is soft, almost like distant rain touching quiet ground. Darkness gathers gradually, deepening into the familiar liquid that will soon rest upon prepared surfaces. The hands move without thought, guided by repetition learned over many calm years. When the brush meets the surface, the ink flows gently, forming a thin line that widens slightly before narrowing again. Each movement is deliberate yet effortless, shaped by patience rather than intention. The mark rests beside earlier lines, joining the quiet continuity that grows slowly across the surface. These marks carry small pieces of life, A record of goods counted carefully. A symbol marking a passing moment. A simple name written without ceremony. None of it seeks recognition. None of it demands notice. Yet each mark remains calm and steady, holding presence in quiet darkness. As the ink dries, its faint shine fades, leaving a soft matte surface. The darkness settles fully into the material beneath, becoming part of it, unchanged by passing hours. The room remains still, unhurried, peaceful. In one quiet corner, finished. Surfaces lie in careful stacks. Some hold neat rows of symbols, balanced and calm. Others carry simple shapes, gentle drawings of land, water, or familiar objects. The ink has dried completely, its presence soft yet certain, holding fragments of moments long gone. Occasionally, a small irregularity appears. A line curves slightly. A drop spreads more than expected. The scribe pauses, observing without concern. Often, the mark is left untouched, accepted as part of the gentle imperfection that belongs to all handmade things. Perfection is not required. Presence is enough. Outside, the air shifts softly. A faint breeze brushes distant leaves, creating a quiet rustling that comes and goes. Water continues its slow journey, touching earth in steady repetition. The world remains calm, familiar, unchanged. Back inside, the brush continues its gentle rhythm, dip, lift, touch, rest, each motion slow, deliberate, unforced. The hand moves not to finish, but simply to continue. The act itself feels complete. As the afternoon light begins to soften toward evening, shadows lengthen quietly across the floor. The glow in the room grows warmer and dimmer. The ink bowl darkens further, its surface reflecting almost nothing now. The brush is placed beside it once more, resting gently, patient and calm. There is comfort in this slow repetition. The knowledge that nothing must be hurried. The understanding that small marks, made with quiet care, can remain long after the moment has passed. Ink does not rush. It does not forget. It simply remains, steady and calm, waiting for another unhurried moment when a hand will lift the brush. Again and another soft line will join the endless. Gentle story carried in darkness upon waiting surfaces. Evening settles again. Quiet and unannounced, as if it has always been waiting just beyond the fading light. The room grows dim, edges softening, shapes blending gently into shadow. The ink bowl remains where it has rested through many slow days, dark and calm, holding its silent presence without effort. The brush lies beside it, still and patient, carrying the faint trace of its last quiet motion. Nothing urges the moment forward. The air cools gently, almost unnoticed. Outside, distant sounds fade into soft stillness. Somewhere, water moves. Against earth, in a slow, repeating rhythm. The world continues without noise, without hurry, without demand. Within this calm, the ink remains steady, unchanged, present, across distant lands. In rooms both small and wide, lamps begin to glow. Softly as night deepens, their light is warm and gentle, touching prepared surfaces where rows of quiet marks rest undisturbed. The darkness of ink appears deeper under this golden glow, calm and certain, unchanged by the passing of hours. Some scribes continue their slow work into the night, Their movements remain unhurried, guided by long familiarity rather than need. The brush lifts, dips, and touches again, leaving another quiet line. The sound is faint, almost invisible, a soft whisper against the surface. Each mark forms slowly, settles, and becomes still, joining countless others resting nearby. The preparation of ink continues, even in late hours. A grinding stone receives a few drops of water. The inkstick moves across it in steady circles, patient and calm. The faint scent of soot drifts gently through the air, soft and familiar. Darkness gathers in the shallow pool, deepening with each quiet motion, ready once more to flow. Sometimes a mark spreads slightly more than expected, forming a darker pool where the brush first touched. The scribe pauses, observing without concern. There is no urgency to correct, no tension in the moment. Often, the mark is left as it is, becoming part of the quiet irregularity that belongs to all handmade work. Nearby, finished surfaces rest in careful stacks. Some hold lines of symbols arranged in steady patterns. Others carry simple shapes, soft drawings that suggest land, water, or familiar objects. The ink has dried fully, its presence calm and enduring, holding fragments of moments long past without effort. Outside, the sky deepens into quiet night. Stars appear slowly, scattered across a vast and silent expanse. The air is still, cool, and gentle. The world feels wide, quiet, and steady, moving without sound, without urgency. Back inside, the brush continues its slow rhythm. Dip, lift, touch, rest. Each motion deliberate, calm, unforced. The hand moves not to finish, but simply to continue. The act itself feels enough, complete in its quiet repetition. Ink, once only a simple mixture of soot and water, now rests deeply within human presence. It holds memory without knowing, carries. Time, without effort, remains steady between moments of motion. The hands that use it change, yet the marks endure. Calm and silent dot. As the night deepens, the lamp flame grows smaller. Its glow softer and more golden. Shadows settle into corners. The ink bowl darkens until it almost disappears into stillness. The brush is placed beside it once more, resting gently, carrying the faint trace of its last line. Silence fills the space, steady and complete. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is asked. The prepared surfaces remain undisturbed, holding their quiet marks, unchanged by the slow passage of night. Far beyond, across unseen lands and quiet waters, the same gentle rhythm continues. Ink prepared, ink used, ink resting, flowing softly. Through generations, through stillness, through time itself. And somewhere, in a quiet moment yet to come, another hand will lift another brush, dip into another pool of darkness, and leave another small, steady mark that will join the endless, unhurried whisper of ink across waiting surfaces.